Ken James and Jason McKittrick. Brought to you by Cryptocurium.
Atop the tallest of Earth's peaks dwell the gods of Earth, and suffer no man to tell that he hath looked upon them. Lesser peaks they once inhabited, but ever the men from the plains would scale the slopes of rock and snow, driving the gods to higher and higher mountains, till now only the last remains. When they left their older peaks, they took with them all signs of themselves, save once, it is said, when they left a carven image on the face of the mountain, which they called Engrane.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of Learning Lovecraft. I am your host, Jason McKittrick, and joining me, as always, the traveler of the Eldritch and Sleepy Path, Mr. Ken James.
What up, gang?
Yes, and that was the opening passage of H.P. Lovecraft's The Other Gods, the subject of tonight's episode. So, Ken, was this a call to adventure or the allure of forbidden knowledge?
I think one and the same. I think they were both there. Once again, we get two characters, another duo adventure.
Yeah.
And right off the bat, I noticed, I recognized, I think at least 4 names of locations.
Good job. I was going to ask you if you picked that up.
I wrote them down here. I have them. I got Kadath, Ulthar, Lomar, and Hatheg.
I don't think we've gotten to that one, but
okay.
You did well there, sir.
Okay. I thought, you know what? I maybe it's just because like all these words that are like
I know. I know. The one that you missed was narcotic manuscripts, but that's okay.
Okay, yeah. All right.
It's fine.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gobbledygook here, and people. The only reason why any of this matters is because people went back after the fact and said, "Hey, he's foreshadowing," but he's not. He just,
right.
He didn't know where he was going at this point, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So, written on August 14th of 1921, first published in the November 1933 issue of the Fantasy Fan. So, man, here we are. This is the gods of Earth have fled their usual habitation, and as man seeks to find them more and more, right?
Yeah.
And when they say gods of Earth, I'm imagining like maybe the Greek gods,
something like that,
like some kind of pantheon of one of them. I just went to that for some reason because
Kratos fought these guys, is what we're saying.
He sure did. That's why none of them are really left.
Not fooling me, Howard.
No. And they're kind of sad gods, huh?
Yeah. They're mopey.
Yep. So he tells us that sometimes that when these Earth gods are homesick, they visit these peaks where they once dwelled, and they weep softly to try to remember the days of old and their days of glory. And their tears fall, and the men don't realize it. Yeah. It's kind of silly, to be honest.
A little bit.
And then we get that they come in their cloud ships.
yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, and there are legends about it all, and there's these certain legends about these high peaks at night when it's cloudy, and that stay away from the gods. They used to be nice, now they're really grumpy.
Yeah, they're leaving you. They're trying to get away from you. Right.
It's like the gods are experiencing deforestation or something. they're just
right off the bat. I kind of, when I was first reading it, but I was thinking that like maybe a hidden message from Howard there, like the more you try to reach, these gods, you kind of get rid of them because like in a way, like the more that you excuse me, I'm tired. The more that you actually, succeed at it, or the more like higher, you climb to the top of the mountain, you're like, oh wait, there isn't much up here. This is just something I did, and you're like, it kind of shrinks the idea of God, because like, that's getting to such great heights that in the beginning, that's what I thought was going on in the beginning in my head.
I mean, you're absolutely right, and that's something that I'm going to cover in the conclusion.
Okay.
No, that's great, man. I mean, that's absolutely. I feel that's absolutely something that Howard was touching on for sure. But
Okay.
yeah, we'll cover that towards the end. But yeah, no, great pull on that.
Yeah, I didn't want to forget that. I wanted to get that point out there. Like I said,
No.
sleepy boy. It's been a long week. You know,
It's okay. You're drifting into the dreamlands. Your favorite.
Yeah.
So we get this next passage.
In Ultha, which lies beyond the river Sky, once dwelt an old man avid to behold the gods of earth, a man deeply learned in the 7 cryptical books of Achan, and familiar with the Pnakotic manuscripts of distant and frozen Lomar. His name was Barzai the Wise, and the villagers tell of how he went up a mountain on the night of the strange eclipse.
Yeah.
So this is our guy here, man. I mean, and like you mentioned from the beginning, there's Ulthar. We've got Lomar from Polaris, and also the Pnakotic manuscripts from Polaris. Now we've talked about the Pnakotic manuscripts before, but I think it just we should just mention also these are named after the city of Nakotis, which is this ancient city built by the great race of Yith, which we will come across later in the Shadow Out of Time. You'll love it. It's like one of his best epics. But we've also got Frozen Lomar, like I said, and that's also visited by Iranon in the Quest of Iranon. That very silly story. So I had to pull that quote because it's a packed full one there. It's like Howard's letting us know. He's like, hey, on the previous edition of guy gets lost and then punished or whatever. Right. So I had to mention that and all the previous stories to see if we're catching on, which clearly you are, because I didn't even have to say it. You pulled it right from the beginning.
Well, this time on, you're gonna hear the guy you came with die. Like that's that's
from a distance, whether it's a phone or just echoing in the clouds.
Right. Now this main guy, what's his name, the one that knows about the gods,
Barzai.
Oh, yeah, him. I was picturing, and this is weird, but was The Breed, that movie where they live underground? It's all like those monsters. Okay. Yeah, that movie. I was picturing the one guy that has like the slits in his eyes, that wears like the robes, and is like the wise man.
Sure.
That's where my mind went. I don't know why.
No, absolutely. And that's Ken's ahead of the game tonight. Everything he says is the next thing I'm about to talk about.
Whew,
I love it. Right. Hey, I love it.
Dude, this is what happens when I'm like, when I'm, I'm half in the dream world, I'm ready to eat the pillow. Yeah.
So, speaking of our boy Barzai, we get this next passage.
Barzai knew so much of the gods that he could tell of their comings and goings, and guessed so many of their secrets that he was deemed half a god himself. It was he who wisely advised the burgesses of Ulthar when they passed their remarkable law against the slaying of cats, and who first told the young priest Atal where it is that black cats go at midnight on St. John's Eve. Barzai was learned in the lore of earth gods and had gained a desire to look upon their faces. He believed that his great secret knowledge of gods could shield him from their wrath, so resolved to go up to the summit of High and Rocky Half-Egg. Ply in a rocky half-egg, Pla, on a night when he knew the gods would be there.
So yeah, like you said, Barzai is this, that legendary seeker of knowledge type, right? The occult scholar, the old wise man, the keeper of secrets, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Gandalf.
His achievements, his level of achievements have almost made him half god because of how much he knows,
Right.
So that kind of goes back to that point that I was saying in the beginning, where it's like, the more you know, the more they kind of go away and you're more familiar with them. Yeah.
Right. Especially if you're alongside people that are very, I'm not gonna say backwards, but in the Stone Age almost, where like he comes with all this knowledge, and they're like, "How do you know all this stuff?" It's like, I crack a book. They're like, "What's a book?"
He's like, "I put down my tablet. I don't watch so much TikTok."
Right.
Or whatever it was then.
Yeah. I go to the Moloch parties.
Yeah. It gets
or maybe
wild
not.
out there.
I heard it does. In the passage here, he mentions St. John's Eve, which I thought was kind of cool to bring up. That black cats go out at midnight on St. John's Eve. This is the birthday of St. John the Baptist. But like all Christian holidays, it's an overlay of a pagan tradition. Right. So in this case, this was actually this was the ancient festival of Midsummer. So bonfires, cats are creepy. I see why he threw it in there.
Yeah, the old people kill themselves. Oh wait, no, that's a movie. I'm sorry.
That is a movie, but you never know what people are going to do out there. Throw themselves off cliffs, whatever.
Yeah, some guy comes with like the mercy hammer.
Right, right. So our guy Barzai, he yearns to climb to the top of this Hatheg Claw, this mountain, right? And he wants to see the faces of the gods, all right? And he believes that his knowledge of them is going to protect him from their wrath.
Right.
So once again, I mean, this is like, Allegory City, right? Yeah. It's like this faces that he seeks truth, the faces of the gods, right?
Yep.
And he believes that this knowledge that he's already gained is going to protect him. So it's like, okay, I see what you're doing, Howard.
Yeah, like so, like they'll be like, oh, it's our guy.
Yeah,
it's our guy Marthai.
Yeah,
there he is.
And then we're introduced to Atal, who is this returning character from the Cats of Ulthar. So that's pretty cool. He's from that village, and he's kind of like the the junior sage or whatever you want to call it. He's
learning.
He's learning. Yeah, he's the Luke in the story, although he's not going to get anything out of this. And they kind of set out, right? So Hatheg Claw, this mountain, it's far off in this like stony desert, right?
Yeah.
And they say that it's like this one peak that rises up, amongst everything else, and then that there's the gods visit this place often because it's there's something about their memories and they used to dwell there in the old days. And with this knowledge that Barzai has, he's like, I know when they're going to come. I know the right time to go. This is the time to go. And
he's like, they'll all be up there crying.
Yep, they'll be up there crying. They'll be listening to dashboard, whatever it is they do up there. But the villagers in the village here, they're like, no, you don't go up there. Yeah. Like, it's bad. The last guy that climbed up there, he was never the same.
Why do this?
Right. And they even make the comparison because they have Atal, the young guy. He was the son of an innkeeper, right? And he's sometimes afraid.
Yeah.
Right. But Barzai's father had been a landgrave. I had to look that one up. He was like a lord who dwelt in an ancient castle. So he quote from the story, he had no common superstition in his blood and only laughed at the fearful cotters. Love it. It's like he's like, no, I was up in the castle, you were out in the fields, your people. He's like, I'm not afraid of this stuff. I'm learned. You guys ridiculous.
It's almost like in Randolph Carter, it's almost the same version of like, this isn't for people like you. Like, stay above ground. I'll be okay. You're prone to, like that. It's that kind of like description of like,
he has his character like dichotomy, right? It's like you have the character who is like, I'm the guy who's good for this stuff. I'm not the emotional guy who's going to get all woo.
Right.
And you are the, the emotional one. Just let me handle it.
Yeah. Fall back.
Watch what I do.
Yeah. Right. And they always kind of end up like, almost Icarus, esque, like flying too close to the sun, and that's how we get our magnificent endings,
Exactly. Barzai for me is kind of like Winston Wolfe from Pulp Fiction. He's like, don't do anything unless I do it first. Like, it's the same kind of thing.
Wolf makes it out, though. The wolf makes it out.
Yeah, well, we'll go over that, Dan. Yeah, maybe this guy did, too. We don't know.
Yeah, we
we don't know. So, Barzai, I'll tell you. Barzai and Atal, they venture out, right? And they can see this thing out in the distance. It's almost like, the Sauron Tower with the eye. It's out there. They can see it out in the distance with its ring of cloud around the summit. And they venture for 13 days, right? And they finally get to the base of this mountain, right?
Yeah.
They begin their ascent, and it's a pain in the ass the entire way, right? Chasms, slippery cliffs. The air begins to get thinner, and then it even becomes harder for them to breathe.
Yeah.
But even through all of this, they both remark on like the strangeness of the whole scene, right? There's like a color changing going on as they go up. It's, we can't breathe, but oh my God, look at where we are. It's kind of like, it's a journey for sure.
Right. And they also already walked 13 days,
Right. No orcs, no nothing.
No.
And Yeah, and then they tell us that for 3 days they climb higher and higher and higher towards, quote, the roof of the world, and then they camp to wait for the clouding of the moon. And we get this, it's all in its time. He knows when to go. I mean, Barzai is not fucking around.
Hold.
Yeah.
Go.
So we get this next passage.
For 4 nights no clouds came, and the moon shone down cold through the thin, mournful mists around the silent pinnacle. Then on the 5th night, which was the night of the full moon, Barzai saw some dense clouds far to the north, and stayed up with Atal to watch them draw near. Thick and majestic they sailed, slowly and deliberately onward, ranging themselves round the peak high above the watchers and hiding the moon and the summit from view. For a long hour the watchers gazed, whilst the vapors swirled and the screen of clouds grew thicker and more restless. Barzai was wise in the lore of Earth's gods, and listened hard for certain sounds. But Atal felt the chill of the vapors and the awe of the night, and feared much. And when Barzai began to climb higher and beckon eagerly, it was long before Adel would follow.
So it's getting spooky up there.
Yeah. And Atal's like,
He's like, I don't know, man.
I'll see how far you make it, and then all right, I'll go to about here.
He's like, yeah, man, you go first.
Yeah. Good. I got your back.
Yeah, and as they go higher, I mean, he has to it says that Barzai has to prod him just to go even higher. Mm-hmm. And as Barzai's climbing, as he's climbing higher, he's able to go faster, which is kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
And to a point where Atal loses sight of him. And as Barzai climbs, he seems to come into like this frenzy, right? He starts getting really excited, right? Almost like there's this madness that kind of takes a hold of him. Kind of reminded me of a bunch of other stories.
Yeah.
Let's see, the transition of Juan Romero.
Yeah.
That's the one that kind of, stuck out in a reverse way. Statement of Randolph Carter as well, because when he has that revelation, he's excited. You wouldn't believe what I see down here, and then it's then it changes. It does, and it changes here too. So while Barzai was shouting all these things, they say that Atal feels like a spectral change in the air, which I was like, ooh, I like that. Almost like kind of reminded me of right before it snows.
Yeah.
You get that weird, little bit of almost like electricity in the air, kind of. It's like, ooh, you just, and he even says the laws of the earth were bowing to these greater laws. There was a shift, maybe. I don't know. And that as they were going up, the path was now more easy again. They make that point again. And this bulging cliff proved to not really be much of an obstacle. And he kind of he slides up.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah, I don't know. I at this point I was kind of like, all right, I know that he's getting sucked up into something. Right. I know. Right. That's from my mind. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's going. Yep. He's gonna hit something. I don't know what it is, but
something happens because Barzai's joy turns into this horror, right? And we get this fun next passage.
The other gods, the gods of the outer hells that guard the feeble gods of earth. Look away, go back, do not see the vengeance of the infinite abysses, that cursed, that damnable pit. Merciful gods of earth, I am falling into the sky.
Yeah, so he messed up.
Yeah, he was taken.
Yeah.
Dude, that's like a nightmare of mine too. The idea of just gravity ending and you're just like, oh god.
Yeah, you get too high and it's gravity reverses and you fall into the sky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not fun.
No, I don't think he was having a good time either.
No, because now you're he's talking about the other gods where it's he's like, these guys aren't handsome and stuff. These are I don't even know if they're corporeal. This is these are you seeing some entities, some creatures out there that we can't comprehend.
Right. And, we get that Lovecraftian mode, right? We get the reaction, but we don't get to see, right? So we just get to guess at the madness, right? And he even says in the passage, do not see. And it's everything is upside down. Right. So, and, from this, it's, his search for knowledge and having this hubris, that ancient Greek favorite thing, uncovers this horror beneath the seemingly benign gods of Earth. Now there's these other gods.
Yeah. Well, at this point, too, like, right before that, he starts saying that, like, oh, I'm mightier than, or I'm better than the gods. He's like, he has that moment of, like, I'm the shit. Yeah, right, exactly. Before the fall upward, apparently. Mm-hmm. But he's like, he's like, he's just talking smack. He's out there saying some stuff that he shouldn't be saying,
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you get on a water slide upward,
Yeah. Oh, you think it was a water slide? That'd be actually kind of fun.
I think the physics of it were very similar to a water slide. I don't think there was an actual,
but it was very corkscrewy.
Yeah. There's like dips and turns. It's like when Napoleon in Bill and Ted.
Yeah, there. Yep.
But it's like going. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's what was happening.
So this is the entrance to the Lovecraftian theme park, water park.
Yeah.
Nice.
You have to get on this slide.
Right. You have to climb a mountain to go down.
Yes.
Up, but down.
But down.
Okay. I like it. So it's a pretty quick succession after this, right? The moon eclipses, there's this clap of thunder, and then Barzai vanishes. All right. And I like that we get, also very metaphorical. Atal covers his ears and descends the mountain without seeing anything.
Yeah, that whole secondhand witness thing that he loves doing.
Yeah, he isn't cursed with knowledge, right?
Yeah, and he's like, look, I was there. I really can't tell you much. That's And then he has this depiction of what happened. It's like you told a good amount.
Yeah,
so you dare not say, but you're going to say something.
Right. So we'll turn it over to Howard for the ending explanation for this.
Now it is told in the moldy Pnakotic manuscripts that Sun Tzu found naught but wordless ice and rock when he climbed Hatheg, Kla in the youth of the world. Yet when the men of Ulthar and Nia and Hatheg crushed their fears and scaled that haunted steep by day in search of Barzai the Wise, they found graven in the naked stone of the summit a curious and cyclopean symbol 50 cubits wide, as if the rock had been riven by some titanic chisel. And the symbol was like to one that learned men have discerned in those frightful parts of the Pnakotic manuscripts which are too ancient to be read. This they found, Barzai the Wise they never found, nor could the holy priest Atal ever be persuaded to pray for his soul's repose. Moreover, to this day the people of Ulthar and Nir and Hatheg fear eclipses and pray by night when pale vapors hide the mountain, Tam the moon, and above the mists on Hatheg Kla earth gods sometimes dance reminiscently. For they know they are safe and love to come from unknown Kadath in ships of cloud and play in the olden way, as they did when earth was new and men not given to the climbing of inaccessible places. Right,
so at this point, the gods are like, we got rid of those pesky humans,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're most wise. Yeah, they're most wise. We just, we let the other gods come in and just be like, we're like, dude, can you get rid of this guy?
Yeah.
They're like, we're just trying to party and maybe weep from time to time.
Yeah.
Get this guy out of here. The other guy will go back. They'll never come back. And the one thing I do like is how Altar, or however you say it, he's like, oh no, I'm not going to pray for that guy.
Yeah, no, he's like, I'm not even gonna like say he existed.
Yeah, because if I do, that might put a bullseye on my back from the other gods. Because maybe they have him. I don't know what they're doing. He's like, look, let's just agree to not talk about him.
Right.
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that because I can't explain that.
Yeah, I don't want to get involved with that at all anymore.
Exactly, and it's interesting because you have these, this whole thing where it's like this haunted mountain and this whole thing and this thing that comes around and it becomes this whole like thing for them because it's like this guy was the seeker of knowledge, right? Barzai was the seeker of knowledge, but these types, Atal and his people are not. And this mountain and this story becomes, something that really like becomes a new bedrock for their beliefs, right?
Right.
They're like, oh, look what happened.
Yeah.
And it's a good, It's a good cautionary tale for them.
Yeah, their New Testament was like, don't go up there. Like, that was all. That was it. That was the book. Like all the other stuff, true. Yep. The new stuff is just don't go up there.
Yep. The Indiana Jones, don't come up here.
Yeah, right. Right.
If we could just clip that in right here.
Don't come up here.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Mm-hmm. So also, this in the beginning of this passage, they talk about this stone that was chiseled into the rock, a cyclopean, huge, 50 cubits wide, with a titanic chisel almost. Kind of reminded me of in Sarnath when they find the symbol of doom. Right? Yeah, something like that. And I wonder what the symbol was. I mean, it's just a story device, but like, you know, my mind goes to it. It's like, what was it?
Yeah, I was kind of picturing just like almost something like circular but rigid, like the way he describes it with like, you know, almost like a giant pickaxe hit it, just something like that. Like, and maybe something exploded out from that. Maybe like the gods of Earth were like, it's like almost like the break in case of emergency button, you know?
Right.
Like someone's coming, it, you know, whatever bridges some gap. There's a light, you know, a bunch of mournful mist comes down or whatever, you know, like
mournful mists. That's like half of these stories.
Right. Right. And then, you know, the old gods are like, oh, they go down the fire pole, you know, they hop in the Specto one or whatever they have to take them to the other side.
That's the cloud ship.
Yeah. Yeah, they get up and, you know, it comes around. They're like, they take the guy, they put him in their containment unit, you know, on the other side.
So this is where, H.P. Lovecraft invented the Ghostbusters with this story.
Yeah. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's no?
Canon, case closed.
I just pictured it as like almost like a, you know, maybe one of them had their, you know, god weapon and was like in the stone, and that like, you know, bridge the gap to, you know, it's like Thor and the Rainbow Bridge or whatever you want to call it.
Sure. I was thinking this is almost like a Prometheus moment when the gods handed down to us the grade school S, the high school S. Like that's what's on the top of that mountain. They're like, what is this symbol? And for you know, centuries on, everyone shares this symbol and they don't know why.
Well, it's a pretty good symbol, you know, if you think about it. It's the symmetry, you know. It's identical on both sides. It could.
How do we know it's an S?
It represents infinity in some way. It's more of a you know what, the S is more of like a sacred geometry 8, you know. It's like it's like the infinity turns up, but it's better because it's more of them, you know.
Okay, yeah, so it's some kind of like globalist symbol. They're letting us know.
Hey man, you would know. You're talking about Moloch parties and stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. Alex Jones. No.
Globalist. Yeah. I mean, you know, it could have been any of those things or all of those things.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this is the story here, and you know, this, you know, hey, ignorance is bliss, right? And you know, knowledge equals sorrow, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. It's that cautionary tale of, you know, mind your achievements. You know, don't go. You know what? Don't go chasing waterfalls.
So yeah, like you mentioned in the beginning, Ken, you touched right on it, and good for you, man.
That's funny. Nice.
So Lovecraft was an atheist, as we've mentioned before, and right off the bat, I see this as an allegory for what is called the God of the Gaps theological concept, and that's that God only exists in the gaps where scientific knowledge has yet to explain, right? But it's the God of the shrinking gaps. So once you shrink those gaps, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So, God exponentially shrinks as scientific discoveries advance. Yeah. So that's kind of like where he was going with this, I think.
I totally agree. I went with more of like a rudimentary, you know, way.
Yeah,
of like where it's like I'm thinking mountains and stone, you know, like
yeah.
And like at that point, like, you know, when you get higher and you can see the lay of the land from that vantage point, it's like, oh wait, you know, okay, I've seen it. We can map it out now.
Right. No, I totally see that. And then because any chance he could, you know, get to, you know, some kind of throw some atheism at anything, he took it. And I see that I see it from that point of view, where it's like, hey, how come I keep looking for the gods and they keep going other places? It's like, well, because they're not there.
Exactly.
So,
but then he does that thing where he has to open it to like the other gods, like the things that are out there beyond that. So you're like, what are we doing here, Howard? You know,
well, I think that it's
funny.
Well, there's his concept and or his philosophy, whatever you want to call it, that, you know, dig to, and we'll see this in later stories, which he does to much greater effect. I'm thinking Call of Cthulhu, but there's others. The more you dig, the more you try to find out, just the worse it's going to get for you. It's like humans are small, threatened little specks of dust. And when we try to dig into it to see what the other stuff is, we just can't handle it. Yeah. And that's going to get more, you know, built upon in these later stories. But now I think with this one, he took that next step. It's like, well, what if there are things after the gods? What would be after the gods? And he comes up with they're other gods. And I think he only has that at this point, has that terminology for it, because it's only by comparison, right? Well, they're just other gods. Yeah.
They're different. They're different. And he even like puts down like he's like the weak earth gods.
Yeah. And these are they're the protectors of Earth's gods. Right. Which is, you know, it's like, okay, so like, you know, Earth is what, kindergarten, and the gods are just out here just playing around, and then there's these other entities out there that are these parental units, or not even just parental units, they're just these other things out there that are just not defined.
Yeah, like what does a god pray to? You know?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think that this is definitely his moment where he steps towards the old ones and the things that we're going to get to later that he's going to figure out. And he's going to be like, oh, that's what it is. You know, it's this, you know, the vast emptiness of space is kind of like what they're supposed to, you know, represent, that horrifying idea that it's just vast nothingness, right? You know, like we've been over.
And then on the other side of the coin, though, too, like when you're not going that way, it's going back to that, like we as people, like human beings, we just keep putting our hand in the fire.
Yeah,
you know, someone that already did it, it's like, yo, it's hot, don't do it. And then, but someone's like, you know what, gotta see for myself. Oh yeah, it's hot. Okay, next guy. Hey, I did that. He did it. Yeah, don't do that. And they're like, look, maybe your hand's kind of a bitch. Let me, you know, and then you know what I mean, like, that's it's the both sides of the coin, which I do like, because like he immediately squashes down the idea that, like, you know, that the more, like you said, the more you know, the smaller the whole idea of concept of God gets. But then all of a sudden it's like, wait, there's these other gods, but then it's also like back down on Earth off the mountain. Yeah, all the ignorant people are kind of just like, all right, we're not going to do this, but then someone else is going to come along eventually.
Yeah, and they can at least be there, right? And they can at least be there to say, please don't go up there. Which is,
check out our new book. The new book. It says just don't go up there.
Yeah, which, you know, what's that? You know, that famous meme. It's like, here's that big giant red button. Do not touch. Yeah. It's like, you know, human entity cannot resist. Yeah. And no, and I think we mentioned in an earlier episode, you know, a lot of these great stories have those double-sidedness to it, right? You can just take it as the face value, or you can, you know, read it for its, you know, its allegorical side. But yeah, this really is also a really fun story of a man who reaches, you know, too far in his quest for knowledge, right? And uncovers, you know, horrors unutterable, right? And his world is literally turned upside down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's in there too. You know, like the slope inverts, and you're just like, no, it's not a slope anymore. I said it too much. Okay.
No. Yeah, and in research, exactly. Did he go up or down? Is he all right? We don't know.
he splashes in the pool of whatever that is. You know, he made it to the other end of the slide.
Yeah, which, now, who says that this is a negative outcome, right? Because he is playing with upside downs, right? Right. So to the people on the ground, this is horrible, but what happened to him? Was he harmed? Was it a negative outcome? Sucked into some other, like, reality? Like, we don't know.
Did he ascend to a higher being? You know, but...
Right.
I just have to base it off of what he was yelling.
I mean, he wasn't having a good time.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he was like good things were happening, but maybe you only realize when, you know, you peel that orange, you know, once it gets through there. Yeah. The peel's gone.
Right.
And it's like, oh, this is actually pretty good.
It reminded me most recently of The Lighthouse. Did you see Lighthouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, when Robert Pattinson finally gets to the top and he sees the light, and it just completely consumes him, right? Like he's like whatever that knowledge, that terrible knowledge is, his puny human whatever just cannot handle it. And I think, and Lovecraft uses that a lot. Yes. And whatever form that is, that the knowledge may be, it comes up again and again. And I think that this is also another version of this. He's still working this out. He's like, all right, I want the guy to die with some horrific knowledge or something that's happening to him. And someone else is like, well, what's going on? Yeah. You know, whether it's through clouds or it's through a phone or
can you
whatever.
Get a picture? Can you get a picture? I'm not coming up there. Just send me something.
Right. So it definitely reminded me of that when I was rereading this for the episode. I was like, you know what? Yeah, this reminds me of the lighthouse. Just that section where it's like he ascends up there. He finally he kills Willem Dafoe with a pumpkin bomb or whatever he does. Well, and
there's one thing. This is what I'm starting to realize too here about this. Like, it's like now I kind of get why there are Lovecraft people. Like, and it also goes into like their tastes of like movies and shows and stuff. So like. For me, I've always been a fan of like that lighthouse kind of style of movie where like you're like, what the hell was that?
Right.
Then you kind of do a little research and like, oh, okay, that was kind of like taken from like a painting. It's a symbolism of this. And like, I always like that kind of stuff. I don't always need like the explanation. Right. But so me hopping into Lovecraft, it works for me because I like this kind of stuff anyway. But I also get how there's like people like me and my buddy Tom, we were like, oh man, I love the lighthouse. But a couple of other buddies were like, dude, I don't know what the hell was going on at the end there. Didn't enjoy it. It was like, I was like, yeah, but look, I did a little research online and like, here's what this means. And they're like, why do I need that in a movie? And I'm like, well, I kind of do, you know, like, so that's where the taste different. I get this kind of club now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's and that's fantastic. And I think we just marked this is a mile marker on the Lovecraft road on the Eldritch Path.
Mark it.
Yeah. Movies are great. I love horror movies. I love the entire gamut of them. So do you. Yeah. But how great are the horror movies or movies in this genre that you get to talk about ad nauseum? Right. Because there's so many ways to look at it, or there's just so much left unsaid that it fosters discussion. Right. Those are the movies that I really enjoy, especially when it's a horror type, because something like The Lighthouse or even The Witch was a little less like esoteric, but any movies like this that has like a left open ending or just things that are just not explained, like hit you over the head explained, definitely falls into this realm or this realm of taste that Lovecraftian people like. And now you understand the club, that it is a club of it's like, well, is this Lovecraftian? And you'll hear that a million times. It's like, what makes something Lovecraftian? Which we should probably do an episode.
Well, one thing too about The Witch, because it's funny, I was just talking about this, I think it was yesterday. And me and Dave from work, we were talking about The Witch, and I was like, dude, oh God, I love that. I love that, how terrifying and scary it was. And I was like, you know what the bad guy in that movie was? It was like the existential dread of not knowing what's going on. You're like a new settler in this new place, and you're just trying to live. Like all that, like nighttime. And the feeling you get, that's the bad guy. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. That's the monster, you know? And like...
Yeah, the unknown.
Exactly. And I love that. And that movie had such a good way of just making you feel it the whole time. You know what I mean? I was like... I was like... Because I saw people before I watched it with Brit, came out, like, people were like, oh, it's just like people in the woods. I'm like, how did you not get that, like, tension the whole time? That, like...
Yeah. Well, it's just what that is, man. I mean, I think there's specifically in horror, there's this expectation that's attached to it, and a lot of folks, their expectation is, okay, here it is. Here's the entity, the monster, the threat. Here it comes. Here comes our people. It has to either be fully explained or vanquished or whatever. Yeah. And if you leave something open-ended or strange or weird or ill-defined, people can't they're like, well, what did I just watch? And they don't want to. They're there for the escapism that they just want, 1-to-1 ratio. Here it is. Here's the explanation. Here it is. But when there's something that you have to fully digest later on, a lot of people just don't want that. Yeah. And it's like, well, you're missing out on the fine dining aspect of of this whole genre. Yeah. And I get it. I get why people are like that, but they certainly are missing out on the higher points of this stuff. And then when you can see the really, the masterful heights that horror can really be taken to.
And you're absolutely right with like the fine dining aspect of it. It's like, yeah, sometimes, dude, I just want a double quarter pounder, you know, like,
yeah, put on Sleepaway Camp 3.
Yeah,
I don't give a fuck.
Give me Haunt, you know, like give me something like that. You know what I mean? Like just something good that's cool, and it's like, oh, this is great. The visuals are great, but sometimes you're like, you're in a caviar mood, you know. It's like, I want something that Sigourney Weaver can't kill, you know. You know, like a feeling, you know, like or like just the unknown heaviness that's surrounding it that turns people into, you know, who they are, or just terrifying. The whole thing becomes like terrifying, especially if you examine that stuff, and that's some of my favorite stuff.
No, and I'm glad you're you know, seeing all this stuff and some of the roots of this stuff, where a lot of this stuff is coming from. And you know, I always you know, not to harp on it for too much longer, but I always tend to, you know, lean towards that stuff too, because it's like whenever you have those horror movies that make the attempt to be, you know, groundbreaking, weird, you know, just outside of the box, I always appreciate the attempt, whether it works or not.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you get that. There was one a few years ago. I think it was called like It Comes at Night.
Yeah.
And it actually ended up being like, this isn't so great. But I was like, you know what? I appreciated the attempt, because having jump scares is simple, but having dread, pervasive dread for like 90 minutes plus, that's difficult.
Dude, I tried to watch It Comes at Night like 3 times.
Yeah.
I think it's the main guy for me.
Yeah.
He rubs me a weird way that I'm just like, your face looks fake. You know?
The whole thing was just like, this was very misrepresented, because it makes you think, I guess it was like the same time that It Follows came out.
Right.
And it was like, oh, everyone's trying to do this. Oh, this is the next thing. And it's like, and I love that movie, It Follows. I think that's a great concept. But some movies just fall flat. But I appreciate the attempt at it not being like, you know, a slasher or a jump scare or a found footage, because now that's all become old hat.
Very true. Very true.
So, yeah. But yeah, man, I do this story gets lots of shit, and it's
really?
Like, it's like, well, it's just another Dunsanian. It's like, well, okay, but
I guess.
Also, this one comes off to me more as like a like an ancient story that you would find in one of his ancient books or something, like, oh, here's the tale of Barzai the Wise, and when he was, you know, sucked into the sky.
See, the main connection that I get is only because he mentions stuff that's in like the Dreamlands or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the only kind of like, besides the following up thing, I just take that as what he says. He's telling you about the other gods.
Yeah.
So like I just took it as just a pretty good, like, it's this far from one of my favorites. Far from one of my most hated. Like, I don't get the Dunsanian stuff. Like Lord Dunsany, I didn't smell that guy here. You know, like I just.
And honestly, I didn't either. But apparently, the ancient history stuff is also part of the Dunsanian mode. Okay. But I don't know. I mean, if the Josh man says it is, I'll take his word for it.
You know what? I didn't know he said that.
Yeah.
So, okay. Sorry, Josh.
But yeah, I do like this story. I mean, it's obviously not one of my favorites, but he's getting work done in this story. You know what I'm saying? Like he's you know, this, you look back, it's like, oh, this is where he figured out this, and this is where he figured out this. Right. And a weird, lonely mountain that, you know, I'm into it. Like, I you know, and, you know, falling into the sky, I'm here for it.
Right. And you know, I got ideas of like colors and stuff. And like, once again, that whole like, what are gods scared of? Who's protecting gods? You know what I mean? Like, and then it's like, oh, these aren't earth gods, silly earth gods.
Like, imagine this with a great budget, like an hour-long like episode of a TV thing. This would be great.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Set it up as like a parable. You know, tell his story. Have Atal telling the story. He's blinded in one eye for some reason, just to give a little bit more, you know, more gravitas, and then, you know, telling the whole story of the climb up the mountain and him going insane, him seeing all the lights through the clouds. And then, you know. I was picturing like greens. I was picturing like different greens. I don't know why that hit me. I was just like, oh, appealing in the greens in the cosmos. It's sucking him in. No, you know, like, yeah. No, I love it.
Yeah, I dug it. I mean, you know, it's a short little guy. It's not, you know, super meaty, but you know what was a little Dunsanian. He did get a little. I'm not gonna say flowery, but he did get a tiny bit exhaustive with the description of certain things. I'll say that. He did.
I think the opening paragraphs are a little weighty, and I think you know, maybe it's a little overboard. I mean, we could have even ended the story with being sucked into the sky, or I'm falling into the sky. You could have ended it there.
Yeah. Right.
And we could have just inferred the rest. But yeah, it's, you know, it's what it is, man. It's we're still in the preseason, believe it or not.
I believe it.
But we're getting there, because folks, if you are following us along on this Lovecraftian journey, next time we will be covering the music of Eric Zahn, and you're gonna love the story, Ken.
I bet I will.
It's about
is this guy related to Steve Zahn? Because I sure love Steve Zahn.
Weird. No, he is not.
Right.
But he creates indescribable music. So, and they kind of go into that, and it's you know, it's a whole kind of like whistling against the darkness kind of thing.
Okay, so that's cool. I'm down with that.
It's wonderful, and it's one of his most well-known tales. So, if you guys are joining us, this is the next tale, and so go ahead and read that one up, and we'll be back next time with that one. And yeah, sorry about the interruption in feed for a little bit, but you know, me and Ken both have lives and jobs and families, and this time of year it just gets gummed up. And we tried last week, but like I was at the end of my rope, Ken was at the end of his rope, and
and he was, it was just like, it's not working out. I was like, you know what? Thank God. Not that I don't love doing this. It's just like I could use just staring at nothing and it's a busy time of year, and we apologize for that, but we're gonna keep at it. We back, baby. We back.
Yeah, we're back. And oh boy, if you're once again, if you're following along with us, if you take a look at the chronological order of Lovecraft stories going on from here, we have so many good stories coming up. Ken is going to have such a good time. Talk about water slides. This is going to be a Cthulhu type water slide that he's going to be going down for the next couple months.
Beautiful.
So
if we ever have a lull, venture over to Other Dangers or go back and listen to some stuff. We have fun all the time. We've had plenty of fun. Join us at our other fun spots.
Yeah, absolutely. Or go pick up something from my shop, cryptocurium.com.
Or go to Bandzoogle and grab the Full Moon Collective by Ken James.
Yeah, we could drop those links.
Yeah.
All right, Ken, I think that's all it's fit to print for the other gods. You have anything else to say on it?
Nope, just that was cool riffing on what this kind of did and open up a door to the whole aspect of the good fine dining horror movie stuff.
Yeah, man, I'm with you on that. And tying back to some other stories. Hey, remember these stories? Go check those out.
Yeah, right.
Gotta love that. Gotta love the callbacks. All right, folks. So thank you for joining us again for this episode of Learning Lovecraft. I've been Jason McKittrick.
And I've been Ken James.
And we'll see you beyond the wall of sleep.